Funding for the production of Folks is provided in part by the Friends of LPB.
Coming up today, a look at the Sisters of the Holy Family, the second oldest order of black nuns in the country. We'll be talking to nutritionist Barbara Dixon of Baton Rouge, and then we'll share with you some art from the Harlem Renaissance. I'm Rob Hinton, and we'll have those stories today on Folks.
Everybody says folks, just plain old folks. Everybody just people all over the world. Folks who live, folks got to give, folks got to care, folks got to share. Our world is small, so very small. What touches one of us, who touches us all? To stay alive, just to survive, folks got to be in harmony. Everybody just folks, just plain old folks, just plain old folks. Everybody just folks, everybody just folks, just plain old folks, just plain old folks. Everybody just folks.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Folks. Topping off today's show, we have a story that we first shared with you during Black History Month. It's a story about the Sisters of the Holy Family, the second oldest order of black nuns in the country. Here with that story again is Genevieve Stewart.
In 1826, at the tender age of 13, the free young woman of color, Henriette DeLille, decided to devote her life to the poor, orphaned, and infirmed. The dream of founding an order of black nuns in New Orleans was born. Henriette's family denounced her, and her mother suffered a nervous breakdown over her squandering her inheritance on poor orphans and slaves. But she persevered, and 16 years later took her final vows, and thus began the religious order, the Sisters of the Holy Family.
Well, it was founded in 1842 by Mother Henriette DeLille. She was assisted by Juliette Godin and Marie-Jeanne Alico. Now, Marie-Jeanne Alico was a French lady who had come to the United States, and in coming ashore, she fell overboard and was rescued by a black fisherman. And for that reason, she dedicated her life to working with the blacks. She never became a member of the community as such, but she always helped the sisters.
From the humblest of beginnings, and with the help of her closest friends, the sisterhood grew in numbers and spirit. Orphanages were founded, the sick were healed, schools were established, and missionaries expanded.
They began very small, taking in elderly people, caring for the elderly, and also teaching catechism to black children, free people of color, and to slaves.
The Sisters of the Holy Family's congregation now numbers 250 nationwide, with sisters serving in Texas, Oklahoma, California, and Belize, Central America. Although the sisters still operate missionaries, they have concentrated on the opposite ends of the age spectrum, teaching the young and administering to the old. The sisters founded the country's first Catholic home for the aged, the LaFawn Nursing Home. The sisters are also anticipating construction of a second senior citizens apartment complex.
We also have an apartment complex sponsored by HUD with 150 apartments. That is in the same area as St. John Berkman's daycare center. We had a piece of property in the back, and they built the apartment complex there. We're also hoping that we will get another apartment complex to be built across the street near to the nursing home. See, the original idea was to build a high-rise apartment complex, and then the people who live there later on would probably go into the nursing home. But we didn't have the money at the time, so we just built the nursing home. But now we are thinking that, we're hoping that the government will give us a grant It's in the works. It might begin as early as June.
Sister Mary Francis Borgia entered the order 80 years ago. She has written a stunning book about the sisters entitled Violets in the King's Garden and is planning to write a sequel. At age 99, her mind is still very sharp, except on one point, which many ladies are vague about.
I entered in 1905.
And you were how old?
I was 19.
19 years old. And if it's okay, how old are you now?
Now I am 98. And I will be 99 on the 20th of January.
She was
The 20th of January is my birthday.
And sister, they tell me that you're 99 already.
Well,
You wouldn't cheat on your age, would you?
no, indeed. No.
At the Mother House in New Orleans, there are 75 sisters, 5 postulates, and novices. The decreasing number of women choosing to enter religious orders is of some concern to Sister Barbara Marie.
When I entered, there were 15 of us in the group. Today, if you get 2, you're doing well. Some years, they're not at all. I think it's a change in the lifestyle of people generally. Formerly, parents would encourage their daughters or sons, at least one in a family, to enter, but not anymore. I think, and that's because they question whether the religious life is feasible anymore. The United States as a country has become very materialistic.
Nonetheless, the good works of the religious order and schools they have founded are not in jeopardy. St. Mary's Academy, begun 125 years ago, is bursting at the seams on a campus built to accommodate 500 students, but with a current enrollment of 750. St. Mary's has exceptional academic ranking. Its strong alumni association has 18 chapters nationwide. Alumni enthusiasm is not surprising, since there is not a room on the campus large enough to hold the standing room only PTA meetings. The sisters have a strong philosophy which permeates their teaching and is infectious.
Well, our main interest is in teaching. We have sisters in many schools, in California, Texas, Belize, and here in Louisiana. We have 4 schools here in the city, and then 3 in Lafayette, 1 in Opelousas, 3 in California, 2 in Stan Creek, which is part of Belize.
And what is it that you try to instill in your students?
Well, the excellent moral living, first of all. That is important, that you teach them from their early days what is right, what is wrong, and give them a chance to aim high. The sky is the limit. Regardless of what color you are or what nationality you are, you can always aim high.
Now, our next segment deals with nutrition, and we'll be talking to registered dietitian Barbara Dixon of Baton Rouge about the subject. We'll also find out how she is combining her career in nutrition with broadcasting and restaurant ownership. We begin our lesson at the Dixon Medical and Nutrition Clinic, which Barbara owns and operates with her husband, Dr. Henry Dixon.
I think it's the basis of health. I don't think we take it serious enough because we wait until we get a particular symptom before we say, oh, this is a health problem that I have. If we would use nutrition in the terms of prevention or preventing diseases, then it takes on another meaning altogether. I mean, if we look at it as being a basis of good health. What we eat generally reflects, what our health outcome is going to be. And I think that, unfortunately, by the time we become seriously ill and we have to make changes in our health, as medical science dictates, then it does not even become fun. But nutrition can be fun, it can be exciting, and it can be a part of everyday life and feeling better, living longer.
So what type of person goes to see a nutritionist?
Well, first of all, I want to debunk the idea that it's all overweight people, because I think when people think of going to a nutritionist, they say, well, can you help me lose weight? Or can you help me gain weight? Basically, I say 90% of my practice is made up of typically healthy people that you see walking around, who go to the spas, who jog, who want to remain that way. I have them from very, very young, because I see children also, from the hyperactive children that we hear of today, to the 65-year-old who's out running 3 miles a day and wants to stay healthy and looking good. So it's a broad range. I think from population-wise or race-wise, most of my patients still, however, tend to be white. I sometimes feel that the black population often needs a lot of help, and yet they're not quite as aware of health issues, or they don't take them as seriously as some of my other patients. It used to be a question, too, of affluency. Was it that people who had a lot of money to spend on their health or to spend on nutrition typically went to a dietitian, and poor people who really often need the help badly often miss out? And I still see that. I still see a trend toward the affluent, the ones that are really, really active, and the ones that are reading, and the ones that typically don't have a whole lot of health problems.
What could a person look forward to, let's say, in an initial visit to you?
Look for a lot of questions, and above all, to spend a lot of time with me. A lot of people come into an office, whether it be a doctor's office, and they expect to spend 5 minutes, maybe the physician not remembering their name, what the illness was. It's quite different with me, because I like to get to know my patients very personally. I'd like to know a lot about their previous histories, what problems have they had, their families have had. I start, I guess, way back from infancy. I do ask, and they do write a lot of questions. They fill out a questionnaire over about 140 questions even before they get to see me. So they're going to spend about 15 minutes in the waiting room filling out my forms. Then by the time I get them back, the picture begins to come together. And by the time our first interview is over, which takes about an hour to an hour and a half, the next time I see them, I have a lot of data, I have lab information on them, and I'm better equipped to discuss their health problem in a wide fashion, not just saying, here's a body here, what's wrong. I think I have a very good picture of what somebody's life is about and their health.
Not only does Barbara preach nutrition at her clinic, but she has also taken her message to television.
Found that people were genuinely interested in nutrition. Again, it was a field that, as I considered, like other people, that here was a professional that was stuck behind a kitchen cabinet that was tasting foods in a pot. And all of a sudden, I think in the 70s, in the early 70s, people did begin to ask questions. And we began to get them in the media, and with very few dietitians with an expertise in television, it became whoever's brave enough to do this. So as I said before, I got shoved into it in a way, and then I became a old ham, and I loved it. And I do now, because I feel that it's a good means of communicating. I can communicate with much more, a wide variety of people. For those people who can't afford to see me otherwise, so they think, then I can reach them. If I've just answered one question that they've had in their minds, or if I can change them from eating sweets or, desserts, or if I can cut down or help them cut down on the amount of sodium in their diets, then if I reached one that had written me a letter, then I've reached 1,000 others. So I think that its rewards for me is that it's much more far-reaching a part of me and a part of my practice. So it's natural with me now. I love it.
What kind of reaction have you gotten from your viewers?
Great. I'm really happy that the reaction is great now, and things have changed in nutrition, as I said. I get a lot of letters. I get people writing out of state, which is surprising because we feel like no one else sees us other than people in our state or in our neighborhoods. And that simply has not been true. Nutrition has reached, and my topics have reached a wide variety of people who are in hotel rooms that are passing through Baton Rouge. And it makes me feel good because it means that what I've said is significant enough that people will stop and pay attention, and it's touched something in their lives.
In addition to her private practice and broadcasting career, Barbara and her husband recently opened their own restaurant where they serve a unique combination of po' boys and health foods.
My husband had always wanted a po' boy restaurant. He loves po' boys, and we do eat out a lot, as a lot of Americans do. But we found that it was less and less restaurants that we could go in, and if we felt like eating something different, that we could eat something different, or that it would be safe, or that we didn't have to deal with the additives and preservatives if we didn't want to. And I wanted a health food restaurant, so we compromised. So we have a po' boy health food restaurant where you can get sprouts on your po' boy, and you can get a glass of carrot juice with that, or you can get a salad, or you can get homemade soup. And so we cover people who are vegetarians and those who generally just want a nice big po' boy, and the next time they come in, they can try our yogurt pie. So it's appealing to a wide variety of people, but yet getting them hooked on a different kind of food, too.
What does the future hold for Barbara Dixon?
Well, again, I think that my goal lies in teaching and in communicating, because it's something that I really enjoy doing, and I mean on a larger level. I can see for myself that I'll be doing a lot more lectures, for the public, because I really do enjoy it. So I see more of the same. I see that I'll need some help, too. I see, as far as spreading myself as thin as I am, but I think that communication seems to be where I'm headed.
We are now going to share with you an explosion of black creativity that began back in the 1920s. A turning point for many black artists, a period known as the Harlem Renaissance.
Well, the Harlem Renaissance began in New York City right after the First World War, around 1920. And it was a time of great creative excitement and really an explosion of talent that occurred in New York City, in Harlem. Writers, painters, photographers, musicians, all coming together to create really an authentic expression of black experience and black life in America in a way that it had never been fully expressed before. Very much inspired by some of the leaders of the black community that had emerged during that period. And what they really told the artists was that we need you to come up with an artistic expression that talks about our own life and our experience in America, and not just a kind of academic expression that one would find in the standard art academies. Well, the leader of the Harlem Renaissance in the visual arts was Aaron Douglas, who was a painter and a printmaker. And he was the inspiration from a whole group of painters who gathered in Harlem at the time, and then other younger artists of later generations that came to New York or were working in other parts of the country. Other artists from that time would be Hale Woodruff, Malvina Johnson, a number of painters and sculptors and printmakers. This exhibit is special first because it's all drawn from one collection. This comes from the Aaron Douglas collection, which is a collection of paintings and sculptures, several hundred works, which belongs now to the Amistad Research Center here in New Orleans. And it's probably certainly one of the largest collections of work of black artists in America. And the idea was to develop a series of small exhibitions which are going to be circulated to museums throughout the South. So this is the first showing of this exhibition, and then it will be toured for about 2 years by the Southern Arts Federation. It's also the first opportunity that we've had here to present a historical survey of the development of black expression in the visual arts in in the 20th century. We begin with the work of two of the late 19th century pioneers, Mr. Tanner and Mr. Bannister, Edwin Bannister, and I've forgotten his first name. Tanner's work, who both of them trained in an academic situation. Tanner was at the Pennsylvania Academy and tended to stay within the confines of the general established artistic styles of the period. Looking at their work, you would not know if they were black or white artists. But they were important role models for the later artists after the turn of the century. And then we have, that's sort of the introduction to the exhibit. Then the central part of the exhibit are the actual artists of the Harlem Renaissance, particularly Aaron Douglas. And we have 3 of his paintings and several of his woodblock prints. And then we have the next section are younger artists who were very much inspired by the Harlem Renaissance artists and who have, since the Second World War, achieved considerable fame in the United States.
Preservation Hall itself isn't all that impressive. The building needs painting, and the sign that hangs out over the St. Peter Street sidewalk is made of 2 old musical instrument cases. Inside the hall are loose floorboards and odd kitchen chairs. And when the hall is empty, the atmosphere is one that most people just wouldn't find too appealing. But Preservation Hall is more an idea than a structure. It is a place where hundreds of people gather every night to hear traditional jazz played by musicians who helped create it. The music is not what many people call Dixieland jazz, nor is it written music. It is music that these men drew from saloons, riverboats, and the streets in the earlier part of this century. The music was originally called jazz, J-A-S-S, a combination of marches, blues, spirituals, and ragtime. It is music that definitely comes from the soul.
It's fairly spontaneous. It's very straightforward. It's very honest, and it's certainly exciting. It has a good swing, a good rhythm to it, and the musicians are, I think, because of the honesty in the music is immediately felt by the audience, and it's an emotional music. We'll sit down at 8:30 and start off, and they might be the only people in the room that knew that they never really worked together before. They all know the style, they know what they're doing, and if they all enjoy it, they might sometime they get a job somewhere else. Somebody else is going to call everybody else up and say, let's get together again.
Almost all of the musicians are over 60 years old, and most of them have seen some pretty tough times, particularly after World War II, when many of them had to struggle for a living at whatever they could find while their instruments gathered dust.
There was a big thing with bebop, and then rhythm and blues sort of came into New Orleans and put all the traditional musicians out of work. And they sort of thought it was the end of interest in our music. We thought that there still was a large audience for the music, and what we wanted was a place where the musicians could play the music the way they wanted to, and people could just come in and listen. They wouldn't be, the purpose of the hall was to have a place where the music was the important thing. People weren't coming in to drink, they weren't coming in to pick up girls, they were coming here to hear the music.
What is it that attracts so many people to Preservation Hall?
I always think that people in New Orleans were, and this area were very special, and they had special needs, and that this music was something that was created to fill this need. It's a music that can be played for dances, that can be played for a funeral. The same music that can make people cry going to the funeral can make people happy coming home from the funeral. It's a very functional music, and as I say, it's very straightforward, it's very exciting, and I think that it has an immediate appeal to all people, and it can be appreciated by all people on many different levels. There's a memorable, occasion every night that happens, something that, every night there's a musical highlight. I guess, personally, some of the things that were most exciting was the first time we ever took in enough money at the door to pay the band. Playing at Lincoln Center to a full house, playing at Carnegie Hall, in England playing at Royal Festival Hall. We've been very fortunate, and we've done a lot of things that have been very exciting, but it's still in all, as I say, every night there's something, there's a pinnacle that's reached that is as exciting as anything else that we've ever done.
Well, that's our program for this week. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week with another edition of Folks, and we hope to see you then. Bye-bye.
Funding for the production of Folks is provided in part by the Friends of LPB.